All right, welcome everybody. So it was an epic Tesla Q1 earnings call yesterday. Now the question today is, did everything just change? Has the narrative changed? Is the future of Tesla change? Future for us investors change? Let's go talk about all the major things, the bombshell announcements they make yesterday. This is a co-stream between the three of us. You can watch this on YouTube at Future Aza or at Hans C. Nelson. Welcome, both of you. So, what's your answer, guys? You want to start first, Hans?
Sure. Yeah, I was very happy with a lot of the information that we got on the call. There were a number of questions that I had, and we got answers to almost all of them. And so the first one was just, what is the outlook for Q2 on deliveries? Are we expecting another, significant overshoot on production compared to deliveries, or can we get all of these vehicles that were delivered or produced but not delivered in Q1 where they need to go? And it seems like that's the indication that we got from management. So that's encouraging. It means that what we experienced in Q1 is kind of one-time production disruptions and logistics disruptions, and that we should be able to be delivering. One of the things that Elon said on the call was that he expects to deliver more cars in 2024 than we delivered in 2023. And that's really the
Yeah.
big fear that people had. Are we going to be flat or down, or are we still going to grow?
I just
So
want to
that
pause,
is
want to interrupt you and pause you because it's curious that you started with that. We're talking about has the world changed for Tesla, and you start with Q2 is going to be better than Q1. Sorry, I'm just curious. Like, is that
that
really the
so
biggest thing?
that was the first thing that jumped out at me. I'm building. We're going to go into the three levels. So
Okay.
A, we're not shrinking. B, all other automakers are shrinking, and Tesla is putting their foot on the pedal to grow across a whole range of areas. Then we get the news about Robotaxi. We see the app that they have produced, which is huge. That means we are moving forward aggressively in plans to change the revenue profile towards more software services. And then to top it all off, the icing on top of the cake, we are going to have potentially Optimus doing useful work in Tesla factories by the end of this year and potential sale to external customers in 2025. So all of that is very, very exciting. And, I think my thesis for a while now has been that whenever they did the free trial and then did their first pricing action on FSD, that would be the beginning of a new era of software revenues for Tesla. And everything that they told us yesterday confirmed to me that is, now that we've seen those two events happen, that we are moving forward in that direction rapidly. And I expect us to see financial results in the next 12 months that confirm all of that.
Okay. Well, Hans, we're not a car company. Did you not listen to Elon? We're not a car company anymore. We are an automobile. We're an autonomous mobile company. That's where we are today. So Q1, Q2, yes, it's great. Q2 is going to be better than Q1. Yes, it's great that the volume is going to happen by the end of this year. If you don't believe in autonomy, don't invest in Tesla. I'm just joking, of course. I know you, you very much. I'm just making fun of you that the whole point of this call was exactly that Tesla's changed forever. I know that it's early. I know these are words, but you can hear the confidence that we are a robo-taxi company. It's gonna happen. Even Ashok Alaswamy was telling you that I can already see and map the metrics we're going to go. Let's talk more about that, but let's hear from you, Brian.
What a great call it was. I think the biggest part of it was that the expectations were set so low. The analysts were just sure it was going to be a disaster. All of the usual Tesla Q fudsters said, wow, with such a devastating quarter, nothing good will come of it. Well, I saw people who said, I'm smarter than the market. I'm going to sell all my shares and then buy them back the day after earnings at a discount. Hey, how'd that work out for you? The stock market has been very pleased with the way the call went and the earnings report generally. We're still holding at 160 plus today. That's exciting. to see that the market recognizes it. So we did get to see the path forward. We now have a better understanding of what's ahead. And that goes for automotive, that goes for autonomy, that goes for bots, that goes for megapacks, that goes for everything. And then you've got the battery situation. It's not as good as we'd hope, but it's not bad. It's still staying ahead. Yeah, megapack, big numbers there. Herbert and I've got a show about that coming out tomorrow or the next day. And yeah, we did, like Hans was saying, we got all our questions answered. That's really refreshing. That's kind of nice to see. Someone in the comments had said, it's impossible to get the right answer when you ask the wrong question. And a lot of people are asking questions about cars with four wheels and a primate operated situation. In a matter of years, this is going to look quaint. Why would you want something like that with humans in charge of your life? It's already seeming a little ridiculous, but it's just getting started. And the big thing to me is there is a conversation with a large company who could be looking to license this. And if this is solved on the timeline many of us expect it to be, it's not clear who will be second or even when, because the amount of data needed to train and the amount of compute to train it is astronomical, and it's going to be a game of catch up. Do you want to be the last commuter car maker who has a meat machine driving this thing around? You're going to go extinct. It's going to be insane. So I'm excited about all of those things, and I hope we have a chance to get into one or more of them.
Well, let's do that. The good question I want to ask you is, which of the statements made yesterday was the most consequential for Tesla as an investment? And yeah, let's start with that as investment, because I was going to say also as a company.
Same thing.
So it sounds like Hans thinks that Q2 is just bugging you, buddy.
Yep.
What is it? What is it?
What kind of time frame are we looking at? Because I think that,
Interesting.
different investors have different time frames.
Good point.
I
Good point.
am very excited about the FSD news and the potential Robotaxi news, combined with what we found out about their expansion of the data center that they're back to on trend for having their 100 exaflops by the end of the year. That all of those things are trending towards being able to earn massive software revenues here in the relatively near term. We're talking about the next 12 to 24 months, which really then helps to solidify Tesla's ability to then go and do all of their long-term stuff. So, all of that stuff contributes very positively to the really big thing, which is Optimus. And if you're thinking about things on a 10-year time frame, then, no doubt,
Yeah.
all of the Optimus announcements are the biggest thing. But the clarity that we have now on the pathway from here to there across the entire business, we got clarity on energy, we got clarity on new vehicle rollouts, we got clarity on the exact business model that Tesla's going to be pursuing for monetizing FSD. We got clarity, like Brian said, on already having an OEM license conversation going on. All of those things really help to give a lot more confidence in the short to medium term that we're not going to be, surprised in an uncomfortable way between now and when we get to the really big stuff.
Pick one. So you started this by saying it's the FSD news, the Robotaxi news, and the AI news, right? So those that cluster, that ecosystem.
Yep.
Is that the one that you're going to pick as the most consequential, because Tesla is an AI company, right? So if I share this, is this the table that you think was the best, which is right here, right? That jump right there. That's what matters the most, right? Boom. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely.
Brian?
So I would say I've got two answers, but only one of them is mine. The short answer is the analysts are excited about the 2.5, about the interim compact that will fill the gap for some amount of time. That's the thing that I think is driving Wall Street. But to me, that's just this much of the story. The real story is all this compute that you're showing on screen right now is how we got from version 11 to version 12, and it is a step change. And you can see it. It looks like a step change because that's how much compute it needs. That's how much data you need. And this will open the door for licensing. If you didn't start working on autonomy 10 years ago, I don't know how you will be able to catch up in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know how you will get to where Tesla is today. Even if you went all in today, you're not going to make it within 5 years. The problem is that big, that comprehensive, that impossible to crack. And I think we're going to see a lot of OEMs lining up to license. For one thing, even if they do it today, even as a memorandum of understanding, they can step back and say, there, now we don't have to worry about it. We can just let it be someone else's problem until it's solved. And when it is, we're on board. But it's still going to mean 3 to 5 years from the time they're ready to integrate it to the time it actually is in the cars and out on the market. So it is, to me, that is huge. It is, beyond compare. And it might be that that Tesla won't sell it; they'll only license it, which would mean all new cars around the world would be chipping in a few bucks a month to Tesla. And by a few, I mean maybe 50, maybe 100 times how many millions and millions of cars every month. It will be potentially insane.
Okay. And then what is it about the call yesterday that you guys thought was not, that wasn't as good news, that was the worst part of it, or maybe you didn't hear something that you thought you really wanted to hear? Wow. Nobody has anything?
I guess
It was
Mexico.
it was a perfect call? Perfect call?
No.
India and Mexico?
I'd have liked to hear India. Fine. It's in the works. I think it's too early to say anything. Mexico is not too early. Say something. Say something. So that's what I was hoping to hear, and I didn't. So I don't know.
I'd say the other thing that I wasn't thrilled about is their actual the ride hailing app go to market strategy of being fully integrated without any long-term plans at this point that we know about to actually allow, other people to participate in that network or to license it or to partner with people like Uber. Obviously, from a near-term investment standpoint, it means Tesla's going to make more money. It's also a lot more complexity. And not that Tesla can't manage it, but one of the fears that I have for Tesla is that we are going to be moving into an era of being so big and so profitable that we really
Okay.
paint a target on our back for regulatory issues and
All right.
antitrust
Yeah.
actions. And so I would very much like to see opportunities for other people to participate in the money-making gravy train that robotaxis are going to be, specifically for the purpose of kind of deflecting hostile regulatory attention. And yeah, just, governments are not going to like one company being this big and this powerful. And so that's the thing and that's not to say that there's not those types of plans for Tesla, but we don't have any visibility into what that's going to be at this point in time. And it just makes me a little bit nervous at this point.
All right, that's 8. It's 8.8, right? They're going to do all of that in 8.8. For me, it was I was happy with what Elon said when he was asked about the 25% control and his commitment to Tesla, but I wish that he gave it even stronger statements. And I'm aware that he's not able to. This is legal. This is going through the courts right now. It's just things he can't say. But it would have been nice if he says, my heart is all in on Tesla. I'm warrior mode, which you can see his actions are definitely that. That is what's happening right now. It would have been nice to hear that. He said something like, at first he goes and says, autonomy is here no matter what, even if I'm not here. Okay. But then he goes, the bot, you know, and that's like, okay, that's I get you. You don't want to push the bot to succeed until you've got this, this thing happen. Then he said about the buybacks, right? That's one method that he could possibly get his 25% control. Is that correct to interpret that way when he said that? Because it was the next sentence he said was about, buybacks could, if we have significant free cash flow, we can do more buybacks. I interpret that because it was the second sentence after the statement that it's regarding his getting to 25%. And I think also moving to Texas and getting preferred shares. But you know what I mean? That's probably the biggest concern we have right now. Very small possibility. It's a very low chance that it's not going to pass an annual shareholder meeting. And then B, somehow he decides to leave. And then that's the biggest concern that we all have, or at least I do. So I'd like to have more clarity on that. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'm less worried about that. I don't know. There's when it comes to the buybacks, Emmett made a great point on the live stream yesterday where he pointed out Elon's at about 13% ownership right now. In order to double that, you would need to cut the number of shares in half. It's unlikely that Tesla will be buying back $500 million in stock over the next few years. And every share you buy back makes it more difficult to buy the next one back. And pretty soon you get to a point where there's not a lot of float left. And it'd be amazing to see that happen, to watch our shares go through the roof because they're trying to buy up the company. I'm not sure that can happen. I've heard conflicting reports that said, even if they moved to Texas, they wouldn't be able to issue a second class of shares, that's something that is established when a stock is first IPO'd. So I would need to do more research to know if that's even a possibility. But I'm not sure what the critical difference is between 13 and 25% ownership. It feels like, at least for now and in recent years, he's had sufficient control, certainly enough control that he felt comfortable divesting some of it to make other investments. So I think, it's his call, and, I'm willing to hear him out no matter what direction he wants us to consider. But yeah, buybacks would be interesting. And there can come a day. There are several paths to having a day in the future where there is too much money to realistically deploy. And that would be a magical thing to witness.
Okay, so here's why I use this title, right? That I think this has changed Tesla forever. Because the part that I loved about what I heard yesterday, right, was that I'm hoping that I'm right, but basically there's going to be drivable cars and there's going to be autonomous cars, right? As Brian eloquently said, there's primate controlled cars, and then there's going to be autonomous cars. Okay, so but the way to get to the drivable cars is to use existing SEXY path, using the existing production lines, using the existing factories, and you can get to 50% growth by, they explain how they can do that by using aspects of the unboxed model and then creating that. And then they said there's going to be additional models coming out the end of this year, even possibly, or certainly the first half of next year. And it's very likely to be either, Brian and I spoke about this. Is it just a trim of the Model 3 and Model Y, or it could actually be models of the Model 3, Model Y, variants of that? But that's for me, it's a crystallization of what this company is. We're going to have drivable cars, and we're going to continue to build drivable cars using the existing factories and production line. We're also going to make non-drivable cars, the autonomous cars, and we have a new platform for that, and that's going to be coming out. And so that makes it so much more like, okay, that's the transition. That's the transition from a car company to an auto company. And, calling Cybercab, calling the FSD version 12.4 and 12.5 are better. We can see 6 months ahead. Ashok saying that I can actually measure exactly. And because we know, like we see an edge case that we need to solve, we feed it videos. We know, we can see how the neural net solves it. Because we know how roughly it takes, how long it does to each edge case, that's how come they have so much confidence that they're going to get to robotaxi level, capability of autonomy, and the confidence from them, that they're going to do this. Elon saying we are and we will. If you don't believe in autonomy, don't invest in a company, and we are and we will get there. And so for me, that's the transition. That's a transition from a car company to an autonomous AI company. What about you guys? How did you guys? Maybe I'm off, right? Maybe you guys think that, yeah, it was a great call. Yes, it made tremendous amount of impact to everybody, but we have to wait and see until robotaxi truly launch. We still need to wait and see before the robots come 2 years from now, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think we need to wait at this point in time. One of the things that I've been reading recently that is coming to be basically consensus in the AI community is that the real factor that everything boils down to in AI right now is data. That whether you're looking at Claude or ChatGPT, or Llama or Lambda or Bard, that as we scale up and as long as you give these models enough firepower from a compute standpoint and from a number of parameters standpoint, they really can do a great job of just understanding the data set that has been fed into them and being able to reproduce that in a reliable way. And this seems to be true. So if you look at something like image generation and you're looking at different types of architectures, are you doing stable diffusion? Are you doing some other form? Like there's a number of different model architectures that people are using to do image generation. But it seems like at the end of the day, if you start with the same data set and you use enough compute and you have enough parameters, that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your architecture is, you end up with essentially a model that performs the exact same way. And the reason that that's important is because in Tesla's use case, we have the real world that we can constantly use to update the data set that we are using to train. And as long as there is real world data that we can change our data set with, which there will always be, there's always going to be an infinite variety of new data that we can get access to using this giant search engine that we have to supplement the data set that we have and improve its quality. And because of that, we have very the sky's the limit. There's no upper bound that we know of that says we cannot continue to improve the performance of full self-driving to the point where it's not only safe as a human, but far, far safer. So we should have superhuman level safety performance, driving performance. You could have all different types of metrics. And the using the architectures that we have in place, just continuing to do more of what we've done up to this point doesn't have a limit. It goes all the way. And so if you say, okay, that's the case, then the profitability of Tesla as a company is something that has also very much room to grow from here. And then that same whole architecture ports over to the bot. And if we have the ability to use money that we're making from Robotaxi to fuel the capital investments necessary to build millions and millions of bots, billions of bots, like it's just insane.
In terms of, do we need driverless cars? There are some manufacturers who don't. Ferrari, Lamborghini, I don't see them in a rush to remove the steering wheel. I don't think that makes sense for what they do. And I think Porsche might be in that boat a bit, although they do make everyday drivers for a lot of their buyers. But for everyone else, this is going to be the next thing. Things are going to get a little crazy in that regard. In terms of recognizing value, I'm not sure that the market is going to be able to recognize it until it has arrived. And when it arrives, I think it'll arrive real quick. I think it'll take off like crazy. I've seen people saying, oh, it'll be 10 cents a mile, it'll be a cent a mile. It won't. I think it'll be the same price or a little bit cheaper than Uber, but with no tip and no awkward conversation. That's plenty for me. That's all I ask for. I did see people very skeptical. Well, what you didn't show an app, you showed just pictures, just renders. I could have made those, after class. Well, maybe go back to class, because if you think Tesla isn't a leader in software, I just don't know what to tell you. Their app is fantastic. Their UI is fantastic. Their route planning and management is fantastic. And obviously, they've got tremendous proficiencies in that regard. Would the app be better than Uber or Lyft's at launch? Probably not. I mean, they've had a lot of years to develop theirs, but I can see it catching up very quickly because they have better people working at Tesla. And the motivations are quite different. And when it comes to profitability, how on earth Uber is not already an extremely wealthy company, I don't understand. They don't have employees. They don't really have assets of their own. What do they have? It's an app that collects a fat commission and they're still bleeding. I don't get it. But I think that's why we saw in the after hours, Tesla stock went up and Uber's stock went down, because some people may have looked at that and said, oh, I'm in trouble.
Now let's talk stock then, right? So has Tesla changed forever? So we've seen Tesla stock just basically crashing. And some people were saying, hey, it's going to go down $100, $80. It's a car company. That was the sentiment 2 days ago. Now, of course, we don't know. We can't predict what's going to happen. But the question I have is there not a floor? So the floor was removed when the Reuters article came out and said that there's no plan for compact car. And if there's no plan for compact car, the second growth wave is removed. And so now it's that, this crazy Elon going all in on Robotaxi, massive bet. If this doesn't work out, there's not going to be any revenue for the company because it's all going to just start to crash, right? The earnings per share is $2 next year, and it's just going to go to cents. You heard all the bears talking about it. And so it just fell, right? I mean, it just continues to fall. There's no floor. But now when they've said that, hey, we've got plans to build new models using the exact production line. And so that's not hard for people to understand that they can produce these because they just launched the revised Model 3, right? Doesn't take them a lot of effort. They've launched the performance Model 3. So for them to come out with new models using the same production line, that can stop the gap. And then the confidence that they have with Robotaxi, and I know that only the bulls like us can see that and feel that, but the bears don't. They just, here's Elon talking about it again. It's going to be when he says 2 weeks, when he says 8.8, we're talking about probably 2026, 27. But is there enough there that maybe at this point that the floor has been, at least placed for the stock? Again, not financial advice. I have no idea. It could certainly fall below $100. I'm just trying to have that conversation of, maybe the story has changed and it's changed for good.
So one of the things that I really appreciated Jeff's commentary yesterday on the earnings call, because there's a lot, when you move to a completely new vehicle on a completely new manufacturing method with a whole bunch of primarily new components, if the full Robotaxi is produced in an unboxed process using 48 volt architecture and steer by wire and very large gigacastings, the only platform that we have to ramp a lot of those technologies is the Cybertruck. And the Cybertruck's not really going to be anywhere near the types of volumes that we're going to need for those vehicles. And so if we can do a halfway step in between here and there, where we're using the new controllers that are, associated with the 48-volt architecture, the low voltage controllers, and all of the, the 48-volt battery instead of the 12-volt battery, and all of the Ethernet loop and all of those things, plus then that steer-by-wire system for a smaller vehicle. If we can have a vehicle platform where we're growing from 2 million vehicles roughly produced and sold this year to 3 million vehicles produced and sold next year, that's ramping a million extra vehicles.
50% growth again, dude.
Yep.
That's
Then
50% growth again. So shouldn't that already, just by that alone,
should
get everybody back on track?
But doing all that, I think people just don't think about how complex the supply chain is. This is the one thing that makes, I have a lot of issues with Tim Cook, but the one thing that he's incredible and exceptional at is supply chain management. And he's so good at it that people underestimate how hard all those things are to do. Well, they're even harder to do in automotive. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if a big part of the delay in Mexico is simply that as they were trying to coordinate the supply chain to keep that factory fully
Okay, no.
operational and running, that they ran into wall after wall after wall of
No.
contractors saying, hey, we can't supply that many parts that soon. And so I think this is going to provide us the bridge to get from here to there so that we've got suppliers who can have an intermediate step, like we said, to grow their volumes smoothly over the next year instead of having to go from 0 to something like 10x. They're going to need to do in short order.
Okay.
So I would,
sorry.
I'll push back on that.
Let me go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So first of all, we don't have a Tim Cook, but we have a Tom Zhu. And Tom Zhu and Tesla is amazing in supply chain.
We're rated number 1. No, he's not.
Well,
we do have an incredible supply chain team, but Tom Zhu doesn't have anything to do with that.
But he's responsible for he's one of the people responsible for production of cars and make sure that they're properly. Jeff Lutz continues to mention that Tesla's supply chain is like rated number 1, like one of the best in the world. So I'm not concerned about that part. And then the reason why I believe they did not go forward with Giga Mexico is because they're going to do the existing production lines on the existing factories to move from 2 million to 3 million. They're likely going to build new factories for the purpose of the autonomous platform, not the drivable platforms anymore. And so that's why
were they delayed?
Because they're like I said, that they're delayed because they're going to go, they made this decision to make the cars, the Model 3s, Model Y cars and new models. And then the autonomous cars will start in the US. So this will happen. In fact, somebody just DM'd me saying that today could be the day that they announced the groundbreaking of Mexico. There was somebody who just sent me that saying that. So we're sitting here waiting to see if that's true or not. So, okay.
I'm just saying, if we go back to the shareholder day last year, they were saying we're going to break ground any day and then we're going to be in production in a year. And then the capacity of that factory was going to be millions and millions of units. So if we had been able to execute the timeline that they laid out for us at shareholder day, we would have an installed capacity next year of well over 4 million units, not 3 million units. And so that gap of 1 million units is, I think personally, stems back to where do you get all of the materials necessary to build 4 million cars? And I just don't think that the supply chain was capable of going to 4 million units that quickly.
Okay,
could have been, but I think that also the last year there was macro issues. He's decided let's not spend our money, and in fact, they needed to spend their money on AI, and that's why they explained that on a shareholder deck, which I love. Love. They pulled back. They laid off 10% so that they can spend more on AI, which is what they needed to do. Now that the Robotaxi is very their confidence level of that is so high now. Now they're going to go. We're now going to see massive investments in gigafactories, and we're going to see Mexico and others now go with the autonomous platform.
Hope so.
Okay.
What do you got for me, Brian?
What I got for you is Monterey is a mature automotive market, and it is not that far from the border, a matter of hours, and it is part of the a free trade zone. If parts exist, they can go into Mexico, they can come out of Mexico, but there is no shortage of parts in Mexico. And especially if you've got a year and a half lead time to build the factory, those parts would 100% show up. The only question mark is the batteries themselves. And for the first 6 months, you could use batteries imported from China while CATL or BYD are building their new factories, which I'm confident they will do. So the vehicles would qualify under IRA guidelines. It's not that. And I don't know what it is for sure. I don't think it's a lack of permits or political will. Those seem to be in place. It appears to be something else. And my guess is what Herbert was saying, that they don't want to spend $5 billion building a factory for horse and buggy when they've got the automobile in their back pocket. I think they want to slow down and wait. Now, if it was me, of course, I would say, well, at least build the factory so that when it's done, we can just turn on the switch. But a purpose-built factory that's designed for exactly what you're building is critical, because if you can shave $50 off per car, million cars a year, that's $500 million over 10 years. Well, if this factory is doing 3-4 million, now you're at 2 billion savings over 10 years from just one $50 optimization. So I'm not sure what it is. The before that, we were talking about Reuters and the effect that it had. Reuters and the effect that it had, because I don't think the problem is that they said there's not going to be enough robotaxis built. I think the problem they saw was that there's not enough cars going to be built, because I really don't think Wall Street understands what the company is or what it does. They see a baseline and just go up or down. And if it's this is the baseline, and if it's, well, we're going to have more cars, we'll go up a little, and if we're going to have less cars, we'll go down a little. And I think that's all it was, just that, because I don't understand how their barometers work. I'm not sure they have good barometers. And yeah,
Well, the reason why I think that there is a floor, I don't think you answered it exactly, Hans, but I agree with you, everything you said, Brian. That's fantastic. Is because the people who see this as a car company, there's a floor, because now they're showing that, well, I'm going to get to the 50% growth rate as well. By the way, we're going to introduce some of the unboxed model to the production line. We're going to have lower costs. We're going to sell to the lower cost, but also they talk quite a bit about how they've been able to manage margins and cost of goods. So that, and then just the whole point about it being able to be launched sooner than they want, that's a surprise. So that, for the people who think it's an auto, and then for the people who believe Tesla as a stock is a story stock, the story has just gotten even bigger, better, and more confident in everything you said at the very beginning when you did the intro, right? The Robotaxi story, the AI story, that jump in that amount that they purchased. You and I have done shows. Brian Wang was on my show. He revealed that today his analysis showed that Tesla's already at 400 exaflops, and yesterday they basically showed that that's exactly correct. They were expecting to be at 100 exaflops by the end of October, and that was some ridiculous number. They're already at 400 now, and it's going to be 10x in just a few more months later because of their purchases of the B100s from Nvidia, something like that. But you know what I mean? So the story stock of it is building as well. And so that's why I just said that don't you guys feel that this Tesla's changed forever? Nothing's forever. And who could have predicted what would happen last year? I get that. So I need to be careful with my words, but it sure feels like that they addressed what they needed to address yesterday.
I think it's always changing, and that's a good thing. It's easy to get stuck in a rut, and I think it's a much harder decision to do the right thing if it's a painful thing. And I think putting Mexico on hold was the right thing and a painful thing in order to better posture for the future. And I would say that to people saying, too corrupt, too whatever, every country has drawbacks, and there are a lot of auto manufacturers who are very successful in Mexico, BMW, General Motors. They have a very rich legacy of domestic automobile manufacture going back many generations now. They are able to get the job done. We have problems of our own. Every country does. And I think Tesla understands the obstacles and has an understanding of how to navigate them at the appropriate time.
Laura, Hans?
I Yeah, I think that, if we don't have any surprises, that we should be at a floor. I think the trend line that we're on right now is somewhere around 140 is roughly the same trend that we hit when we came down to 100. But, you know, if we have more supply, like if something happens again with the Red Sea, then, there are things that can happen that could potentially throw a wrench into the monkey works that Tesla really doesn't have any ability to work around. And something like that could potentially take us back below that 140 level. But I think I think the likelihood that the floor is in is much, much higher today. It's probably 60, 70, 80% now instead of, where we were sitting just last week at maybe only 50%. So, yeah, I feel really good about this as an entry point for, anyone who does have a long-term time horizon. Obviously not financial advice, but like this is an area if I had spare cash, I would be buying.
And I would love to ask folks in the chat, what is something you're excited about from the earnings call or the shareholder quarterly report? Because to me, there's a lot of good news in there. We've already discussed Megapack. We've already discussed possible buybacks. We've discussed FSD and the training cluster. I guess I would have liked maybe some questions on how much Dojo is deployed. I did see that in the comments. Thank you, whoever that was. So apologies, it was a while ago. But we did see one of the slides in the presentation said Dojo cluster, not a render, suggesting that it has begun scaling. So that would be interesting to see. While those are coming in, do you guys have any other things? There it is. Dojo training cluster, not a render. I don't even know what I'm looking at. I can't wrap my head around it because it's a flat picture of a three-dimensional object. And I guess it doesn't have any good frames of reference for me. But,
Yeah, this
what are
looks
some
like
other...
seven seven racks of Dojo compute, and I think when they talked about it originally, an exapod was going to be 10 racks. And so either, this is just not a full exapod, or they've been able to make it a little bit more dense and now they can do a full exapod worth of compute in only 7 racks. But if they have that operational and it's running and it's fully coordinated and they're able to use everything that we saw in that picture to run jobs today, then they have solved the hardest of the problems that there are in order to be able to meaningfully scale up Dojo deployments. There are some jobs that you're going to need to run that are going to need to run on much more compute than was pictured in those 7 racks. But that's not going to be all of the workloads that Tesla has. They're going to have other workloads that don't need to be running at that large scale. And, maybe for those biggest jobs, they're going to rely completely on their Nvidia H100 clusters. But they could add several incremental 7-rack Dojo pods, get it. And if each one is close to an exaflop or a full exaflop, every one of those gets us closer and closer to that 100 exaflop goal. I'd have to look at Brian's um, analysis. What I've been looking at says that they're probably somewhere on the order of 40 exaflops of compute right now, not
No, no.
400.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
so
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Like I said, I'd have to look at his stuff and see
Well,
where
I
he's.
mean, look at this table again. And first of all, they
Yep.
say H100 equivalent GPUs. So why
Yes.
do they use the word equivalent GPUs except to maybe also say that part of this is also Dojo that's
Yeah,
contributing to
I
this?
definitely assume that part of this is Dojo. And
Yeah.
in the past, we were measuring, they had that 100 exaflop goal, and it was measured in A100 equivalents at the time. And everything that I've looked at says that an H100 should be roughly 3 times the number of operations per second that an A100 should have. And Elon even said that for our use cases specifically, we're seeing about a 3 times speed up on H100s over A100s. And so, anyways, I've done some of the math and converted it, and this gets us to a little under half of that 100 exaflop goal that they laid
Take a
out
look at
last year.
yeah, Brian, the interview with Brian Wang.
Yeah.
Take a look at that.
Yeah, I'll do
So,
that.
what do you guys think about the term? He threw out the term Cybercab, 8.8, and then for some reason he said during 8.8, August 8th, we're gonna speak more about the $25,000 car. So the term Cybercab. So I guess the way I'm interpreting it to mean is that Cybercab is going to be the name of the vehicles, the autonomous vehicle platforms. There was a advertisements for job postings a while back, and it referred to autonomous platforms. Autonomous platform, autonomous vehicle platforms. What was the word? But it was referring to the fact that it was a platform not just for one autonomous vehicle; it was be multiple autonomous vehicles. So I think Cybercab is probably the term. This is the Cybercab, or it could have just been a code word, but it didn't sound like it. And I still believe that they'll use auto as the name of the actual Robotaxi network, right? Get an auto, because he kind of joked around, right? Auto is part of the automobile. We're adding auto to automobile. Yeah. What do you guys think about that terminology that he used?
I agree. It could be a product and it could be a philosophy. It could be both at the same time, because one big thing we got yesterday that I found very encouraging. I know a lot of investors were asking about this, and not just investors in the stock, but there are people who may have bought a Model 3 or Y with the belief that it could go on the Robotaxi network. And then when they heard Cybercab is coming, they got a little skittish and thought, oh no, I have to buy a different car for that. And we've now heard confirmation that no, you can put your car, your 3 or Y, on that network. And better still, you can make it just exclusive to your friends and family. You can make it exclusive to 5-star people if you want. I was telling a gentleman about this yesterday. He said, of course, it makes so much sense. Wouldn't it be great if instead of going to pick your kids up at the mall, your kids can just hail the car themselves and come home? If your kids get, go out to a party and there's someone causing trouble, or, their designated driver got drunk, whatever, they don't need to face the embarrassment. They just go on the app and get a ride home. No questions asked, no huge taxi bill. So I think all that is very good news, and I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, I think that they've always talked about the next generation vehicle platform when they've talked about the unboxed model. And I think that there's going to be a variety of form factors that come off on that. And apparently at least one of them, if not potentially more than one, are going to be the cyber theme with I'm assuming that means that it'll be the folded stainless steel with the hard edges and the Cybertruck look to it. Otherwise, why would you call it I think cyber is the design aesthetic, not necessarily anything else. And so that's exciting. I think one of the easy things that makes sense in that realm is a more van-like form factor, built on the actual Cybertruck chassis. That would be something that makes a lot of sense. And then, there's a whole number of possibilities for other vehicles. One of the things that I expect to see sooner than talking about the vehicles that can be produced on the current existing lines using some of the technologies that are going to go into that unboxed model autonomous vehicle platform, but things that will probably be produced next year is it makes a lot of sense, especially now that we just released and a lot of people are very excited by this new Model 3 performance and just how incredible it is. If you take something like that and you chop it down and turn it into a 2-door hatchback, and you sell, instead of for $55,000 to $60,000, you sell the coupe hatchback version of that for in the 40s, then you've really, really got an incredible performance
Yeah.
vehicle that a lot of people are excited about that form factor on. And I think you unlock kind of a new level of demand again for something that should be a relatively high margin vehicle as well.
Yeah. Brian and I just recorded a show, and said the same thing. When they said multiple vehicles being released, and he suggested that it's going to be by the way, he said multiple vehicle models, not just trims. Initially, I was thinking it's going to be a Model 3 Lite and a Model Y Lite, maybe, which maybe not, but Model 3 Lite for sure. Brian was saying maybe they will do the whole back different to be a hatchback, and then it'll be like you were saying. So back to the Cybercab and him saying that we will have a Robotaxi purpose built Cybercab. I think what they might, and then $25,000 car, we'll talk more about it at the 8.8. It could be that what they're going to reveal on 8.8 is an unboxed model, and the unboxed model now they've clarified is going to be for the autonomous vehicle platform. And so what they might show you now is, here is the 2-seater, here's a 4-seater, here's the van. Maybe they won't show you it, but they'll just show you that we have the capability because of Unboxed to create these different variations. And then this is the compact car, the drivable car and the autonomous car. And that's why we're going to reveal more of it then, because it's really more about the reveal of the Unboxed model. More than just the theory of it as a slide that they did the first time around. And I love Cybercab, by the way. I think that Cybertruck is known to be the safest vehicle there is, right? That was built tough. And so if you were trying to launch a autonomous vehicle, a ride-hail platform that no human's going to be driving, people are going to be so afraid because they think I can just die at any moment. But if they tell you that this is safe, now, there's an argument. People are saying, no, you're not going to make a small vehicle that's cheap, that's going to be made out of stainless steel. But I'll tell you that, they could probably, okay, it might not be stainless steel. Maybe it's another material. But it
If
could
it's
also be
cyber, it's stainless steel. I'm almost 100% positive.
I agree with you. So imagine that they did find a way to make it, just simpler, because you don't have to paint it. They're not going to have concerns with that. And it's so safe on all sides. So what a perfect autonomous vehicle to get into, because it's safe.
It's so much smaller than the Cybertruck that the amount of steel needed goes down commensurately. So in that regard alone, you could save half or more of the cost. And maybe on the first generation, you go with the thick steel like you've got on the Cybertruck just for peace of mind. And on later iterations, when the safety is better understood and more widely accepted, because there's people who still think that every EV catches on fire and needs its battery replaced every 3 years. Those people haven't figured it out yet. Those people still don't want to get in an EV. I'm the guy who's always saying, have you ridden in one? Do you wanna? And I've had people say flat out, no. And all I can say is we've got so much more education to do. But for a first generation going overly tough, go for it. And then as time goes on, eventually, ideally in the future, the roads will be so safe that we no longer need all that extra weight to carry around just for safety. But today is not that day.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight part of what makes the stainless steel on the Cybertruck so hard to bend is there's two factors to it. One of them is the thickness that Brian mentioned, but then the other one is the fact that they do some sort of magical process that Andy Monroe has talked about to actually turn it from a martensitic stainless steel into an austenitic stainless steel. The reason that they did that is because Elon wanted it to be bulletproof. That you
You
can't
don't need
have
that. Yeah.
bulletproof
Right.
martensitic stainless
Mhm.
steel. You have to turn it into that austenitic form, which, I know this is all nerd things, but what I'm saying is they did something
Mhm.
special to the stainless steel to make it bulletproof. The same thing that makes it bulletproof makes it really hard to bend. So if they make it thinner and they don't make it, they don't even try to make it bulletproof, they don't do that special process to it to make it austenitic, it becomes much easier to bend, much easier to work with. It solves a lot of issues. And so, I don't see, like, there's not a fundamental first principles reason that we can't have stainless steel cars that we're still going to fold and make them look like the Cybertruck looks, but they don't have all the same underlying manufacturing challenges that make the Cybertruck a difficult car to make.
And I would point out, you can have any substance bulletproof. You just got to make it real, real thick.
Yeah,
So
you can have
maybe
paper.
that's, yeah,
Yeah,
enough styrofoam. Give me 30 feet of it and I'm bulletproof.
Okay.
But
So
yeah.
part of the story of whether or not we believe that Tesla has been changed forever, given the new information we received yesterday, is in your belief that Robotaxi's here, it's coming, and it's coming sooner than later. So let me ask that question. I mean, everybody's very cautious. Elon has continued to claim that autonomy is here for 5 years straight. It didn't happen. Um, but was there anything you learned yesterday that made you feel like it's not only going to happen, but it's going to happen sooner? And I don't want to give a date, but maybe within a year, within this year, maybe within this year, or at least a year from today. Is that because if you look at what they're doing, they've announced the 8.8, which could be just him saying, "Hey, there's a date. I want you guys to hit this target." They're going to reveal the actual design. He has said that we're very far ahead in unbox model. Franz has been working on the design for the autonomous first car since 2019. You can see they can see the progress with FSD. Do you guys believe that this is the case? Because if you do, then that's why we're investors in the stock. But is your confidence even higher after yesterday than it was the week before?
Yeah.
Why?
Absolutely. Because I'm seeing the jump from version 11 to version 12 was monumental.
You
And
knew
now
that
we
you knew
see-
that before yesterday. I'm saying, what did you learn yesterday?
I'm
Yeah.
getting there. You showed the slide on page 8 that showed compute. And the amount of new compute added in the last quarter more than doubled. That is insane. That's why we're getting these versions every week. I don't know if it's even breaking a sweat. And unlike with version 11, where I was confident they were throwing out 99% of the training data, with this, I don't know how much they're throwing out, but a whole lot less. So this tells me that they've got the data, they've got the compute. We also saw the miles driven. It's racking up at like 200 million miles a month now, or something insane like that. It is going so fast. And if this problem can be solved, and I'm confident it can, this is an approach that can do it. And if the only way to solve it is brute force, they are brute forcing it, but they're also doing it with an elegance that would allow it to do even better. And like Hans was saying, once we get through enough nines that it's 10 times safer than a human, why stop? We'll just keep going. There's more. There's more, and we'll solve that too, and we'll make it safer still. I am in this for all the moonshots, but this is one that's looking a lot closer to insertion orbit than I may have expected a week ago. What do you think?
Yeah, I
Hans?
think the things that give me extra confidence are, as you pointed out, the growth in compute is a big one. To see that they were able to bring online that much compute that quickly is very good. Obviously, we knew this before. This is another great piece of data telling us that, hey, the rate of progress is really fast. But the confidence of management to really go ahead and move very dramatically into the robotaxi realm, to say that, we want to have a Tesla owned ride hailing app and operate fleet vehicles, and that's something that they're working on now and moving concretely towards, and that we're going to find out more about that on 8.8. Those are signs to me that their confidence level in the progress of the software is very, very high. And so obviously we've heard comments that they are confident in it, but this is just another level of validation above that that helps me to feel like they're really seeing great things. And all of the indications that I have outside, like, it doesn't change my thesis. You asked, do I feel differently about it today than I did yesterday? I don't have
What?
any new insights, no, but I am more confident because I did see them making very concrete steps to move in that direction faster.
Okay. Let me interpret what you just said, because I've been talking to you and we've had many shows, right? I think what you're saying is that you have been saying these things, that
Yeah, I've
the
been saying this is exactly where
compute's
Tesla's going
high,
now for
they can
years.
measure it, the FSD growth, they can see these things. And then what they did yesterday was they confirmed it. They actually
Yes.
said that this is true. We actually grew the AI this much. We actually can measure FSD improvement. We can actually know, here's the Robotaxi platform, here's the screenshots of the AI. We were saying these things were going to happen, but yesterday was
Yeah,
confirmed. Yeah.
let me let me make it very clear what I'm saying. Tesla's going to be making a crap load of money off of software sales very soon. And what they told us yesterday
Yeah.
helps me to be more confident that that's coming sooner rather than later. And this
Love
is
it.
my thesis in Tesla now for a while, for the short to midterm. Sometime over the next 3 years, I have believed that FSD is going to get to the point where it becomes a money printer for Tesla. And the management team at Tesla right now seems to be saying that time is now. I
It's
think that the
now.
next 12 months will be a turnaround in where and how Tesla makes money, and they're going to be making much more money much more quickly than people realize.
So we're no longer just here's a product, buy it, I make a profit on that product. This is now a transition to the subscription model, to the software AI model, and they're outlining for you. They're giving you they'll actually show you the business model on August 8th. Um, the other thing that happened yesterday that I thought they weren't doing as much was that they actually said multiple times these new business ideas that they have, and feeling very confident about it, right? This idea that somebody, let me show this one, thoughts on the 100 gigawatts of access distributed compute. Thank you so much, Pete. They talked about that, and they repeated it a few times, that at some point we're going to have tens of millions of cars out there, Teslas, and they're going to have the unused inference compute that only we have, that no one else has. And this could be additional revenue streams. Like they said a few of these ideas yesterday that again was, at one time he talked about potentially a Dojo as a service, and then he quickly said, but we don't know if that fails. But if it succeeds, it would be great, but we don't know yet if it will happen.
Yeah,
Here
I
it was
definitely
like,
feel like distributed
yeah.
compute kind of falls in that camp. I think there's a huge potential there, but the future of what artificial intelligence looks like in 5 years is pretty fuzzy. And knowing if that's something that is an asset that you can monetize on that sort of time frame, maybe. I hope so. Like, I think it's definitely possible. Definitely not something that I'm putting a whole lot of faith and hope in at this point in time.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't. But I'm just saying that, right? They
Yep.
they address short term needs, they address midterm needs, they draw long term needs, and then they actually started dreaming about other business ideas that even farther away. I think that it's all accelerating, right? When you have that much AI, you have that much compute, and then you actually are proving that we have real world AI with FSD. Now you can see what's going to happen with a bot. Now you can see what might actually happen with these other gigawatts of excess distributed compute that you can have access to. I'm very happy that they invested significant amounts on AI. I've been saying for the last several months, Alexandra and I, that they should actually raise cash in order to invest more to make sure that we have as much compute as possible. They didn't need to raise cash, but they certainly cut the staff to be able to release another $1 billion per year, put in $2 billion, and I hope that they keep buying even more, building data warehouses. This is now the new, and they said it, right? They said it yesterday that we are investing in data warehouses while other companies are pulling back on this investment.
They so 100% agree, but they did also say that we're trying to invest in a CapEx efficient way, and we're
Yeah.
going to manage our cash balance in this transition to the new business, which I do think that, brings us back to the argument that we were having earlier about, timing on Mexico and all of these things. I think there is the other big piece of it that we didn't touch there was just the amount of capital expenditure that would have been required at a time when the economy was much more questionable. I think that, trying to make it through to a little bit more certain macro economy is also kind of a big part, and wanting to have extra cash on hand for that period of uncertainty. And I think we're kind of through that now, and we can say, okay, we can reaccelerate our investments at this point in time.
Yeah. Let's talk bots. So for me, the whole investment has now switched to Optimus and the bots. That's my interest. I think it's a massive opportunity. He's repeated it. He did say that we are currently today able to see Optimus do simple factory tasks, although albeit in a lab. But we do think that we'll have a limited use of it in actual factory by the end of this year. So for me, that was great news. I think that was ahead of what most people were thinking, in line with what I was thinking. We may be able to sell externally by end of next year. So again, he's confirming that this is a product. Many of us were thinking that they'll build 1,000 next year. They'll have those 1,000 just for Tesla, because Tesla can use 5,000 bots. At one point, Tom Ju actually said on stage, think about Giga Mexico when we have 5,000 employees and we have 5,000 Optimus. What will happen to our efficiency? Because he's measured absolutely on cost efficiency per car, and so this was very good numbers, good dates, clarified it very, very much more clearly than before. Optimus will be more valuable than anything else combined. Sentient humanoid navigates reality and do tasks. No limit to the size of economy. We are the best position of any robot maker to make sufficient production with efficient inference in the robot itself. People are, like the one thing that Tesla has better than Nvidia is the inference chips that they're able to do. Nvidia is by far better in the training compute, but not the inference compute that Tesla, continues to explain that they have the best. So I was very happy with what I heard. I wish, he was more specific, because he, at some point he can actually say we're going to make 1,000 bots by a certain date, and even 10,000. But for him to say that we're going to sell externally by next year, that is a big deal. I'm expecting it to be more than 1,000 now, if that's the case, because I think Tesla themselves can use 1,000. Why would they sell it externally unless to just make a point?
I mean, I think Tesla can use far more than 1,000 internally.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they could
Yep.
probably use 10,000 in the relatively near future. And having that would obviously provide a much better base to do all the training necessary for the bot. So, I don't know what the threshold is where they stop or where they start selling them to outside customers in addition to whatever they're using internally. But it's great to hear that they are thinking that they can sell this as a product, because Elon's always talked about this, if the goal is to sell potentially in the order of billions of bots, that you only do that if you're selling them to outside customers. So obviously that's always the plan. The question is just when does that happen?
And
So
when
to
you
see
when you
him
make your first
saying,
sale, yeah. Go, sorry.
yeah, when do you make your first sale to those external customers? And so for him to say that they're looking at that on the order of 2 years
Next
from
year.
now,
Next
that's
year. No,
not,
no. He said next year, dude.
well,
By the end
yeah,
of next
that's
year.
like by the end of next year. So we're talking about 18 months, 18, 19, 20 months, somewhere in there. Yeah.
But
Uh,
once
Even
they
if
make
it's
the
2
first
years,
sale,
3 years,
yeah,
yeah,
you
like
make no,
it's
no, 2 years. Once they make their first sale, then that is what people need to have a spreadsheet to calculate out what the potential is, because it's a product
yeah.
that's being sold. And boom, let's go ahead and map this out. What it's
Well,
going to be
it'll
5 years from now, 10
already
years from now.
be, yeah, on the balance sheet. Like you'll be able to see the financial impact potentially even before they start selling them externally to the company, depending, I guess, on how much they report to
Explain
us.
that. What do you mean?
You know, if
You're talking
they're
about
putting
margins reduction
if they're
from the
putting
auto?
1,000, 10,000
Yeah.
of these on the line, and we're seeing the efficiency flow through to COGS, and we can have some sort of visibility to know how much of that gets attributed to the robot fleet, then you can say, hey, here's the profitability profile of these
Mm,
robots.
mhm. Yeah. Interesting. I think what I've heard so far that in an auto manufacturing factory, 50% uh of employees are needed still. Humans are needed, but I don't know if that's going to have as much in Tesla, because Tesla is already so automated in so many ways, as opposed to I've shown a video of how BMW's factories, and you can see a human, a human, a human, a human. You don't see that as much in Tesla. But we won't know. But yeah, this is like next year. So I wish I heard more though on the Optimus. But
You
still very,
see,
very
you,
happy.
you see humans in that factory. I just see the primates. Gotta
That's
get,
right.
gotta get them back to what they're good at: being creative and living life instead of counting the minutes until my 15-minute break.
All right. Thank you guys very much. So we do this co-stream in all of our channels every Wednesday. Appreciate everybody. Good times. See you soon. Bye-bye.